Mike Brown, the former FEMA director.
Joining us here is the former FEMA director.
History, I think, was very unkind to you, my friend. Very unkind.
Mr. Brown, thanks for being with us.
This is Michael Brown Unplugged.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Michael Brown Unplugged. Glad to have you with me. So Elizabeth Warren says that she plans to be the last American president to be elected by the Electoral College. I don't know, maybe she's attempting to distract from her tanking poll numbers and her Medicare for All disaster, but she's once again calling for an end to the Electoral College. She floated this completely non-starter idea back in March. She claims that after she wins, she wants to win her second term by popular vote. She tweeted out, "My goal is to get elected, but I plan to be the last American president to be elected by the Electoral College. I want my second term to be elected by direct vote." Well, the Daily Wire reports that, quote, Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat from Massachusetts, isn't even the front runner for the 2020 Democratic presidential nomination, but she's already looking forward to running for her second term as president, a term that she hopes she'll win by popular vote after she eliminates the Electoral College. At a stop in Waterloo, Iowa, Warren waxed poetic about her first term in office as President Warren and suggested that among her top priorities is a rewrite of the Constitution, eliminating the Electoral College and replacing it with a popular vote. Does she realize that she can't rewrite the Constitution? Has she even looked at the process by which we go through to amend the Constitution? Now, I don't know, maybe in a tweet she can't explain that, she's going to present legislation to Congress and that Congress is going to have to pass that legislation and then it's going to have to go to the states and the states are going to have to approve it. Maybe she just didn't want to do all of that in a tweet. The Daily Wire continues that when asked about the Electoral College, Warren said that she wanted to get rid of it, a statement she's made before, and then added that her goal is to get elected and then be the last American president to be elected by the Electoral College. Now, I know all of you know, but the Electoral College is established by the Constitution, so she can't get rid of it with a pen and a phone. No, she can't act like Barack Obama. Indeed, she would have to get a constitutional amendment passed by a supermajority in both houses of Congress and then passed by 3/4 of the states. Now, alternatively, a constitutional convention could be called by the states, but I don't think either one of those scenarios is going to happen. And the latter, a constitutional convention of the states, has never happened. The Daily Wire continues. The Electoral College is spelled out in the Constitution, so the Constitution would need to be amended, a process that requires the assent of 2/3 of the U.S. House of Representatives, 2/3 of the Senate, and 3/4 of the states. Although that's happened before and with some regularity, it hasn't happened in decades, and with an increasingly polarized electorate, particularly one that feels that change is only necessary because Hillary Clinton lost the Electoral College but not the popular vote, it's unlikely to happen anytime soon. Now, the states themselves could eliminate the Electoral College by agreeing not to send electors, and some did that just in wake of the 2016 presidential election. But, and perhaps this is the most deeply ironic problem for Elizabeth Warren, states like Iowa, who don't have the kind of population that would make them relevant in a national popular vote, I doubt would agree to a system that wipes out their voice in the elections. But needless to say, some people have some thoughts. Joe the Dissident, one of the people I follow on Twitter, tweeted out, "I spurn this with extreme contempt. In my opinion, this tweet should end you as a candidate. Your intention is not to uphold our government, but to subvert it. The Electoral College," Joe writes, "is brilliant. It spreads power to more Americans rather than further concentrating it among big city elites." And then there was this tweet by Eddie Zipperer. The President of the United States literally has zero say in the process to eliminate the Electoral College. If your goal is to help push through a bunch of moronic constitutional amendments, you ought to stay in the Senate. I think is exactly right. Ariel Davidson tweeted out that under this system, Candidates would spend their time almost exclusively in New York, California, Texas, and Florida. Why would they bother caring about what voters in Iowa or North Dakota think? This idea is crap, and you should do some long thinking about why this is a terrible idea. Colin Moriarty tweeted out, "You're living in a dream world if you think the Electoral College is going anywhere. Regardless of whether you approve of it or not, you will never in a million years get state legislatures or federal legislators to vote in the numbers necessary to change it. Literally never." Darnell Clayton tweets, actually, Colin Moriarty is correct. The Electoral College was created in order to avoid rulership by urban centers of America. Politicians would only visit big cities if it was merely a popular vote. The Electoral College forces politicians to campaign in rural areas. And then, of course, David French had to chime in. Making absurd, completely unrealistic promises is rapidly becoming her specialty. I should say so. You know, I think the whole problem is Democrats are still on full bore tilt after losing the 2016 election, and the Electoral College has been on their radar again as a result. You know, they likely can't win on the new Green Deal. They probably can't win on Medicare for all. They can't win on abolishing ICE. They can't win on open borders. They can't win on the providing of free everything and the grab bag of lunacy they're currently running on, as long as the Electoral College is in place. Now, for her part, Warren is desperate to get some media attention that doesn't involve her fumbling on Medicare for all or for that matter, her horrific nosedive in both Iowa and national polls. But I thought the whole point about Elizabeth Warren and her diatribe against the Electoral College really plays to the useful idiots in society. And unfortunately, most of those useful idiots, I'd like to claim that most of the useful idiots are located in urban centers on the East Coast and West Coast and maybe in the Midwest, but they're really not. They're spread everywhere. Here in Colorado, we're trying to give away our Electoral College votes. The Electoral College was specifically designed to spread power across both urban, well-populated areas and rural, less populated areas. And that's why we have every state has 2 U.S. senators, and then the House of Representatives, that house which is supposed to be closer to the people, is then apportioned according to population. So different states have a different number of congressmen, but every state has 2 U.S. senators in the upper house. And the idea of that is to balance out the power. You've often heard me talk, whenever I talk about the separation of powers, the 3 co-equal branches of government, all of that is part of the perfect symmetry that the Founding Fathers put together. And it wasn't just the structure of the federal government. It included things like the Electoral College to ensure that, because remember, at the founding of the country, we had more populated states like New York, New Jersey, than we did in less populated states like in the Carolinas. And so they knew, or New Hampshire, Vermont, any of these. So they knew that they had to somehow balance out that power among populated states and less populated states. And it was not only in the division of the legislative branch, but it was in how we elected the president. Now, I want you to think, just do a little mind exercise. This is going to be a short podcast, so this won't take long. I just want you to think very, very briefly about the idea of a national popular vote so that, and forget all of the unintended consequences. If you had a close election, and that election says if it's within 1% or 5%, how long would it take us to do a national recount? But think of the other unintended consequences. Where are the candidates going to go campaign? As one of the people on Twitter pointed out, obviously they're going to go to the urban centers. The urban centers would end up dominating American politics. Now, I ask you, very simple question. Do you want Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, there's the left coast? Do you want Chicago? For that matter, with all due respect to Texans, do you really want Dallas or Austin? Do you want for those of us here in the Rocky Mountain West, Denver. I'm not talking about the suburbs. I'm not talking about Colorado Springs. I'm talking about Denver. Do you really want Miami-Dade County? Do you want New York City? Do you want Boston? Do you want those urban centers, Atlanta? I'm just trying to go through my head in the map. Do you really want all of those urban centers becoming the concentration of all of the campaign spending, all of the time the candidates win or campaign in? Because if they can win those urban centers, who cares about the rural areas? The urban centers outweigh by population the rural areas. So nobody's going to care about Iowa. Nobody's going to care about the western slope of Colorado. Nobody's going to care about Kansas, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska. Nobody's going to care about Wyoming. Nobody's going to care, for that matter, about Oklahoma. Nobody's going to care about any state except California, Texas, New York, Illinois, Massachusetts, Florida, and maybe not even Massachusetts. Oh, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Again, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. They'll campaign solely in those urban areas. And the urban areas where most of the vote will then turn out, because that's where most of the campaigning has gone, why would anybody care about the rural areas? If you want to see another way that America is fundamentally transformed, do away with the Electoral College. Elizabeth Warren is grasping for straws. But the sad part is, the straws that she's grasping for, eliminating the Electoral College, is really popular with useful idiots. Beware those who want to eliminate the Electoral College. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you tomorrow.